The Israelites conclude their 40-year journey in the wilderness. They are now encamped on the plains of Moab. The promised land is within sight, marking the end of their long exile. The Midianites, related to the Israelites, inhabit the nearby region. Initially, the Midianites appear to be peaceful neighbors to the Israelites. Balaam, failing to curse Israel directly, sought an alternative strategy. His new plan involved exploiting the relationship between Israelite men and Midianite women. Balaam intended to use the Midianite women as instruments of temptation. The goal was to entice the Israelite men into acts of idolatry. This seduction was designed to lead the Israelites away from their faith. Balaam believed this would bring about the divine punishment he could not invoke directly. Israelite men began interacting with Midianite women. This interaction led to the Israelites participating in the worship of Baal of Peor. Baal of Peor was a Midianite deity associated with fertility. The Israelites' involvement in this worship marked a departure from their own religious practices. The Israelites are depicted abandoning their monotheistic faith. They are shown bowing down to idols, violating the covenant with God. Sacrifices are being offered to Baal, a pagan deity. Ritual orgies are part of the idolatrous worship practices. These acts signify a complete departure from the laws and commandments. God's anger is ignited against the Israelites. This divine wrath manifests as a devastating plague. The plague sweeps through the Israelite camp, causing widespread death. Tragically, 24,000 lives are lost to the plague. Phinehas, Aaron's grandson, observes an Israelite nobleman with a Midianite woman. This act occurs during a plague affecting the Israelite camp. Phinehas, acting decisively, kills both the Israelite nobleman and the Midianite woman. This action is interpreted as a zealous act to stop the sin and restore divine favor. Consequently, the plague afflicting the Israelites is halted. God commands Moses to engage in hostile actions against the Midianites. This directive is rooted in the Midianites' acts of treachery. Moses is instructed to strike them down as retribution. The command emphasizes a forceful response to their deceitful behavior. This action is presented as a justified consequence for their betrayal. Moses convenes 12,000 Israelite soldiers. The soldiers are selected with 1,000 men from each tribe. This assembly marks the preparation for a holy war. The impending conflict is specifically targeted against the Midianites. The campaign is presented as a divinely sanctioned act of war. The Israelite army engaged the Midianites in battle. The Israelite forces decisively defeated the Midianite army. Every adult male Midianite was killed in the conflict. This included the 5 Midianite kings and Balaam. The Israelites engaged in the systematic burning of all Midianite towns. Following the destruction, the Israelites seized all livestock and animals. Women and children were taken as captives. Gold and other valuable possessions were plundered from the Midianite settlements. These actions resulted in the complete devastation of the Midianite towns and the acquisition of significant spoils by the Israelites. Victorious Israelite soldiers return to their camp. They bring with them captured women and children. The soldiers believe they have fulfilled their divine mission through this act. The return marks a moment of perceived triumph and completion of their ordained task. Moses expresses his anger towards the soldiers. His anger stems from the soldiers sparing the women. Moses blames the women for misleading Israel. This confrontation highlights issues of accountability and influence. Moses instructed the Israelite soldiers regarding their treatment of captured people. The command included the killing of all male children among the captives. It also stipulated the killing of every woman who had known a man. The instruction made a distinction based on the women's sexual experience. Young virgins were to be spared and kept alive. Soldiers carry out executions at a designated site. The executions specifically target male children. Women are also among those being executed. 32,000 young girls are spared from immediate death. These girls are seized and treated as property. The girls are forced into enslavement. The narrative is subject to diverse interpretations across different disciplines. Theologians may view the story as an act of divine justice or intervention. Archaeologists might analyze the story for historical accuracy. Skeptics may challenge the story's authenticity. The Late Bronze Age was characterized by frequent warfare. Revenge was a significant motivator in Late Bronze Age conflicts. Tribal survival was a central concern for communities. Eradication warfare was a common practice during this period. Society was structured around tribal affiliations and rivalries. The era was marked by instability and constant threats to existence. In ancient Israel, idolatry was considered a grave offense. It was viewed not merely as a mistake but as a form of spiritual corruption. Idolatry was perceived as a disease capable of infecting the entire nation. This corruption was believed to have severe consequences for the community. The implications of idolatry were thought to extend to the spiritual well-being of all. Thus, idolatry was seen as a threat to the nation's covenant with God. The command to kill the Midianite women is interpreted as a measure for spiritual preservation. This action is framed as a spiritual quarantine to maintain the holiness of Israel. The rationale suggests that eliminating these women would prevent spiritual contamination. Maintaining purity within the Israelite community was seen as paramount. Young girls spared in war are not considered spoils. They are viewed as untainted individuals. These girls represent a potential source for future wives. They also serve as a source of future servants. This perspective emphasizes their role in future societal contributions. Their value is seen in their potential, not as immediate assets. Purification rites were conducted following the massacre. These rites included the ritual cleaning of weapons used in the event. Soldiers involved were mandated to undergo a period of isolation. This isolation served as part of the purification process. Soldiers are returning to their camp after a battle. They carry gold, symbolizing victory and spoils of war. Children are also among those being brought back to the camp. However, the soldiers are burdened by the memory of the massacre that occurred. The weight of the violence and loss is evident in their demeanor. The scene portrays a complex mix of triumph and sorrow. Later Jewish scholars have engaged with the historical accounts of massacres. These scholars have attempted to provide rational interpretations of these events. Some scholars argue that a particular massacre was a unique, isolated judgment. This interpretation aims to prevent the massacre from being viewed as a justifiable precedent for future actions. Modern readers reflect on the ethical dimensions of the historical event. This reflection includes diverse perspectives from Christians. It also incorporates viewpoints held by Jewish individuals. Theologians contribute their scholarly analysis to the moral discourse. Together, these groups grapple with the complex moral implications. The biblical story can be interpreted on multiple levels. One interpretation frames the narrative as a cautionary tale. This interpretation warns against the misuse of holiness. Holiness should not be wielded as a weapon against others. The story also highlights the perils of unchecked power. Unrestrained authority can lead to corruption and abuse. Jesus preached a message of radical love and forgiveness. He advocated for loving one's enemies. This teaching marked a departure from traditional interpretations. The Old Testament often emphasized justice and retribution. Jesus presented a contrasting ethic of compassion and mercy. This teaching is a core tenet of Christian ethics.